All right, welcome to our Cons of Tarkir set overview. Here with Maxime and Bill, and possibly others, to share their insights and ask questions about the set. Since this set is, I think people are excited about it. It's the source of many fond memories for those who played it, and much hype for those who haven't and been hearing about it. So I'll turn over to Maxime, just if you have some general thoughts or your experience with the format briefly before we get into some of the
Sure.
cards.
Yeah, I think like you, this is when I started drafting a lot, and it was a very fun set. Good color balance. Morphs was a creature like one of the main mechanics. Also, like one of the first three color sets in a while. I think that resonated with a lot of people as well. Uh, yeah, just a good set.
Yeah, before I turn over to Bill, I'll again briefly discuss where I was. I started playing Magic earlier in the year in 2014 with the Theros block, and I was mostly playing Standard. And I remember I would see people drafting, and I'm like, what are they doing playing with commons? Like that they're useless otherwise. And I sort of gradually got interested in draft, but then it was this set that like hooked me in basically and made me just a hardcore drafter. It really opened my eyes to a lot of things, as we'll get into. I guess we'll start with Bill, who's never played the set. Do you have anything you want to know right off the bat before we get into some of the topics I jotted down?
Yeah, I mean, this is exciting because I've heard a lot that this set is like the goat. I mean, everybody raves about this who played at the time, and I've seen some of the cards and bins, and I know that there's big rhinos and stuff, and this
Couple,
is uh like a multicolor set. I know there's dragons and stuff, but I'm pretty unfamiliar with it, so excited. Was this like the first wedge set or multicolored set?
not the
Yeah,
first
this is
multicolored set, but I think it was the first dedicated wedge set that really made three color cards. I will just make one small correction: is that in this timeline of Tarkir, the dragons are gone. It's in the alternate timeline of Dragons of Tarkir, there was dragons everywhere, and now this is the result. There's no dragons actually in the set, as we'll see.
this is a
But
better timeline. Let's just say.
for
I
Um,
limited
see.
and for story wise, yes. Yeah,
And
no, this was a great. This is great. It was a multicolor set. It really focused on three colors. Like you're almost always going to be base three colors,
Yeah,
or at
notably
least
this
base two
got
colors.
the names for the three color wedges, right? Before that it was like whatever we're using like bug or whatever. Now we have official names like Sultai, Jeskai, all of that comes from here.
Yeah, those names came from here. I believe some in some old set they tried to give them names like Anna and Dega and some other stuff, but never caught on. Um,
and was triple cons the way that it was drafted, or was it
so
like a block?
so we had triple cons, and then they introduced Fate Reforged, which was drafted with cons, and then cons went away, and then Fate stayed, and then Dragons of Tarkir was drafted with Fate Reforged. Never mind those two other sets; they're not coming on Arena just yet. We're getting straight cons of Tarkir, so it's not remastered. There's not bonus sheet. It's just the packs as they were, as it was in the day. Which I think they would have received a fair amount of backlash if they didn't produce that for us. So I'll start off talking about at least the speed. Uh, it's known as a generally slow format. You have these tap lands at common that it's common that people are starting at 22 life. Like very frequently, people are playing one of these tap lands, the gain lands. They're going tap land, morph on like turn three, starting at 22 life. So there are aggro decks, but there was lots of ways to combat it. Um, so I jotted down some of what I thought were some of the best decks generally. I think of the three color decks like
I
Abzan,
think we should talk about
Saphir.
what Morph does for a second.
Yeah. We can go on morph. So I'll get a morph card here that we can look at. Here's a Master of Pearls, so this is a rare, but we'll get into some of the commons and cycles and whatnot. So morph says you may cast this card face down as a 2/2 creature for 3. So there's no text. It's just a 2/2. And then every morph card has a morph cost. This one is 3 white white. And it says turn it face up anytime for its morph costs. When they say anytime, they literally mean anytime. It doesn't even you use the stack basically.
Yeah, that's right. It doesn't use the stack, right? So you can do it. I don't know how the timing works with that, but morph in
um,
response to another morph. Does it?
yeah, so you can respond to something your opponent does by morphing, but your opponent cannot respond to your creature getting morphed. Like it just turns face up. So if they, well, Master of Pulls maybe not the best example because it's a 2/2, but some of the creatures that turn into a 5/5. If they shoot 2 damage at your morph, you can flip it, and once you flipped it, they can't respond by shooting it because it's now just whatever the other side is. Things that have a trigger like this one, when Master of Pulls turn face up, they will get a chance to respond to that.
I
But the
see. Okay.
actual flipping, it just happens. And
And the creature will be whatever is on the front side. Once it's flipped, and there is nothing your opponent can do about that.
yep, it is that. So I made a couple other notes about morphs. Like I said, often it was like tap land, morph. I think probably some people have talked about it, and I know they mentioned unlimited resources. There was sort of the morph rule of the 5 mana rule. So I'll pull up this as an example. This war behemoth. So there was a sort of a rule of your morphs. Once you get to 5 mana for a morph cost, you can basically win combat against another morph, and for less than 5 mana, you're either still trading or you're bouncing off. So basically, once you get to 5 mana, it's gloves off. The creatures are going to be bigger than 2/2s, and that's pretty much goes for all of the morphs. That was kind of the rule.
So I know Outlast is in the set, and Raid is Dash here as well, or
No, it's raid. We'll get to that. There was one other thing I wanted to mention for morphs. There are a couple of tricky ones that flip up for less than 5 that can actually eat X1s. So be careful. So there's a couple of them. There's the Sage Eye Harrier here. So if you do have like a 2/1 and you're attacking into opponent's morph and they only have 4 mana, you're thinking, okay, it's just going to bounce off, or it's gonna trade, or if it's gonna flip up, it's gonna be like a 0/5 or something. So there's the Sage Eye Harrier here for 4, and there's a 1/4 lifelink for 2 mana to flip up. So just these are not like format all stars or anything, but just something to keep in mind. If you have a 2/1 or a 3/1, you can run into Sidisi's Pet or something else. Yeah, so Outlast was the Abzan mechanic. I'll pull up one here since it's right here. And I think when people first saw this, they thought it was going to be slow. So Maxime, what do you remember about Outlast?
So Outlast, I mean, it was kind of slow, but pretty much all the Outlast cards that outlast for 1 mana are pretty good. So what they do is at sorcery speed, you can pay a mana cost and tap them to put a counter on them.
Yep.
And a lot of them, like this one, have some effect that like helps your creatures with +1/+1 counters. Yeah, I mean it's a good mechanic. It's like I don't know. You still often attack with your Outlast creatures, but if the game drags on, you do activate them for sure. I remember like Einok Bonkin was like one of the premium white commons, right?
Yeah, I
Two
was
mana,
gonna. Yeah,
yeah, two
yeah,
mana, 2/1, 2 tap Outlast, and then it gets first strike, as well as all your other creatures with counters.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. This was a big one. This was a big one at common.
yeah, Obzon Falconer was one of the mythic uncommons.
Yeah,
It
right
gave
next to it.
uh, your creatures with +1/+1 counters flying. Um, so yeah, I'd say they're all like fairly good. Um, I'm thinking of like the most generic one is like Salt Road Patrol, 4 mana, 2/5, 2 tap to Outlast.
Yeah, well, the one I
And
wanted
then
to bring up that was oddly annoying. Well, not oddly, it was just actually really annoying. Was the Disowned Ancestor? This one.
I love this card. The 1 mana 0/4.
And it's a
Yeah,
warrior.
yeah, and you'd sometimes attack for 0 with it to just trigger your
Trigger
raid as
raid.
well.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, solid card.
Yeah, like sometimes you just like you're just sitting there, and the next thing you know, they got a 4/8 with some keyword ability from another creature, and you have no way to get a 4/8 off the board. As we'll get to removal, not the best. There was a couple of okay ones, but yeah. So we also mentioned raid. Raid gave you a bonus for attacking. Once in a while, like with the Bellwing Saddle Brood, it took away a downside, but most of the time it's getting a bonus. I think one of the more ubiquitous ones was this Mardu Skull Hunter, also the Mardu Horde Chief. Just a good mechanic. Just we've seen it before in Ixalan. It's pretty straightforward. It tends toward aggression and rewards you for attacking, which a lot of decks did not want to attack in the early game. So if you can get stuff like Skull Hunter going and Horde Chief, that's a good way to get under some of the slow decks.
Yeah, definitely. I do want to talk about the creature, like the stat lines that are important in this set. So a pretty common play pattern is for your opponent's first play to be a 3-mana 2/2,
Yep.
which means, for example, 2/3 is a lot better. It also makes 2/1s better because you can trade for a 3-drop often. Like, I really like this Wetland Sandbar. See this one?
There it is.
There it is. It just ended up that you could play those cards and either trade up or maybe deal 4 to 6 damage before they could have anything big enough to actually profitably block it.
Hey, look, it's Wetland Sandbar with a text box.
Yeah, there it is.
Highland game. That was also good. Yeah, basically 2 mana, 2 power was kind of just good because it traded with morphs. Like, you didn't want your other 3-drops that weren't morphs or your 4-drops to trade with morphs. So stuff like Highland game was pretty premium.
Yeah, or like less bad than it looks, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, well, just in general, remember, this is 2014 design, so adjust our card evaluations. 1-drops are bad, like they were before. Removal is slow. I guess we could go over some of the removal at common, because it might not take a while, because there's not too much. The only thing white gets at common is Kill Shot, which destroys an attacking creature, which can be good, especially if your opponent is putting mana into a morph, that they're attacking. They may have dumped 8 mana into a creature and you're killing it for 3. So not too bad. We got Smite the Monstrous, which also kind of plays in the same space of them spending mana. Blue, their only removal was the Singing Bell Strike, which wasn't good. Black had the premium Debilitating Injury. This was your go-to cheap interactive spell. Also Throttle and I think it was called Rite of the Serpent. Yeah, 6 mana, destroy a creature. We played these, usually by one of them. Throttle for -4/-4, and red. We're used to there being a 1 or 2 mana spell that deals somewhere in the range of 2 to 3 damage to a creature. We're looking at 4 mana for 3 damage here. Though Hour Storm was pretty good.
Yeah, notably,
And,
removal gets a lot better when you have morphs that are just things you can do if your opponent doesn't give you a good target or a good reason to use it.
yeah, and green had the Savage Punch as a removal, which was pretty good. I kind of want to talk about sort of some of the archetypes. So I mentioned like Abzan was pretty good. Literally, the goal was to just outlast the opponent, just make the game go long, build your creatures up, and win with those. We went over that. How did you like the Jeskai decks, Maxime? The Prowess.
Yes, I did
Prowess decks.
really enjoy those back in the day. I would say the way I played them a lot was just blue-white X flyers or blue-red X flyers, right? You kind of wanted it to be base 2 colors, one of them being blue. Jeskai Windscout was kind of one of the good reasons to go there.
Yeah, Jeskai Wind Scout. The Jeskai Student was a pretty good one too.
Yeah, the 2 mana one.
Flying, but yeah.
Yeah, these decks played a tempo game. You just got to deal a lot of extra damage in the air later on.
Yeah, and it made a card like Defiant Strike pretty good, actually, in those decks.
Yeah, when you're able to deal like 3 extra damage from it or something.
Yeah, when this is +2/+1 and draw card for 1 mana, you're in business, right?
So are there like accompanying a lot of instant sorceries, or are there artifacts and enchantments that you're using for Prowess too?
It's mostly just instants. Like the artifacts, as we'll see, are not really great. There's not too many playable ones, given the banners. When we talk about fixing after, talk about banners. It was mostly spells. The blue had pretty good tempo. They had this Force Away card, which is the bounce spell that you could loot if you have a ferocious creature. So that was nice. Yeah, even.
This Mystic of the Hidden Way is also super important.
Yeah, I was gonna get into that when I got into sort of best commons, but yeah, that was a good one too.
Another evasive creature.
Yeah, so the Jeskai decks were pretty good. Red could play a role in the deck too. Also, you had this 5-drop hexproof prowess, which could kind of get out of hand with the right
Yeah, that
combination
was
of
a weird
spells.
one. It's a 4/2, so it's not great if it just trades for a morph, but
Yeah,
if you really have a lot of spells, you could maybe make it work. I think it got better with Fate Reforged, where there was like an aura that gave it flying, right?
yeah. Bloodfire Expert was like the red common prowess creature, which could do some damage sometimes, but a little fragile to start off. I want to mention the Black White Warriors deck too, because that was sort of the go-to answer to some of the slow decks. Just lots of warriors at common and uncommon. Uh, lots of good early drops that could fight against morphs. What do you remember of that deck?
Yeah, it was a deck that just had really high quality black and white cards. So like there were a lot of uncommons that there were the two chiefs, like
Yeah,
Chief Edge, Chief of the Scale, and then you were just playing, yeah, just well statted creatures
yeah,
early and to
Chief of
attack
the
with those.
Edge. Yeah, Chief of the Edge, Chief of the Scale here.
Yeah, I think there was like Raiders Spoils as well, which was a reason to maybe get in there.
Yeah, Rush of Battle also could be your finisher.
Yeah, once you got a lot of warriors. What's also nice with black white is that you can, if you're in black white, you can easily like switch to Mardu or Abzan depending on which one's open. Like a lot of the time, your black white warriors deck would have like maybe 3 red cards or 3 green cards at your
Yeah,
top end.
usually red, just because it was more aggressive leaning. Yeah, here's the Raider spoils. Pump all your creatures and do that. But yeah, most of the raid creatures were warriors. Not all, but a good portion of them were warriors. Stuff like Mardu. Where is it? The War Shrieker. Yeah, this was a pretty good one. If you could on turn 4 attack, play this, and then play a morph or something or anything that costs 3 mana, pretty good. So the raid decks are pretty good. White red kind of was like a little too low to the ground to be great. I know people used to play this Valley Dasher card. Uh, I know I
Yeah,
wasn't too fond of it. It's
I
not
want
even a warrior. It's not even a warrior.
I want to bring that up and Monastery Swift Spear as well, which both kind of fall into the trap of you're not able to be aggressive enough to quite use those cards. Your Valley Dasher eventually just hits a wall and dies. Your Monastery Swift Spear is kind of similar. Like maybe you can get in some early damage and maybe even bluff some attacks or something. But at some point, they'll just have a big enough thing to block it, and you haven't done enough damage for it to be worth it. Because of the tap life gain lands, and just like there isn't quite enough support to do that.
Yeah, not to spoil anything, but Valley Dasher was on my list of trap cards that we'll get to.
For the archetypes that are like black white, they touch both red and green, right? Abzan and Mardu. Is there ever a time when you're playing black white and splashing both like green and red cards?
Unlikely. Usually,
Okay.
usually the decks that turn into 4-color decks are the next archetype I wanted to talk about, which is like the blue green morph centric decks.
Yeah.
Based around usually one of the following cards. We had Trail of Mystery, which is a rare. It's one of the few actually good ways to fix in this set outside of lands. The Trail of Mystery draws you a land whenever you get a morph creature come in, and then probably my favorite card to draft in this set, Secret Plans. Basically, your face down creatures win combat as is, +1, +0, +1, and then you draw a card whenever you turn one up, which is awesome. And then the other one was the Ghost Fireblade, which was extremely efficient. If you're paying 1 to equip to a morph here for +2/+2. So those are usually what hooked me into the deck. And then you can kind of add colors as you go, because a lot of your splashes are morphs. So
Yeah.
like you could be blue green, and you could just throw in Abzan Guide, which is off by 2 colors, but if you have the lands, you play it as a 3, and then you flip it up later, and you get a 4/4 lifelink.
For sure.
So there was like a 5-color morph, 4-color morph, teamer morph, but always based in blue green. And Bill was asking me before earlier today about drafting 5 colors, and it's like that's a 5-color deck, and there was even like another sort of 5-color deck that was value based, just playing all the bombs, and that deck, and I know I did this a lot, which was to basically just take tap lands in pack 1 like over medium cards, Like in a lot of drafts I did, I would end up with like 6 to 7 of these tap lands after pack 1, and then I could just take whatever. Like whatever 3 color cards are getting passed to me, I'm just grabbing them.
Are you prioritizing Gainland or Triland?
Well, the tri-lands are premium, which we'll get to, but like I would just be taking tap lands over like medium cards. And then you get decks where you have like Warden of the Eye, which is a Jeskai card. When it enters the battlefield, you return a non-creature, non-land card from your graveyard to your hands, usually instant or sorcery. So I'd be playing Warden of the Eye, a Jeskai card, to get back like Abzan Charm, to like draw more cards, which is like off by 2 colors. You know, this is like your 5 color value sort of deck that just makes use of all the 3 color cards that come your way.
Yeah, I think my question was actually how many colors are you going to shame me for playing? And it sounds like there may be no shame, so that's going to be good.
Yeah, this is the one time Richard will not tell you your mana base is bad.
It's a shameless format. Yes, absolutely. I guess we could start getting into some of the top commons. I sort of marked them down by color. A couple of them we mentioned already. So for white, I definitely put Enoch Bondkin as this is in no particular order. This is just my general feelings. Card we haven't mentioned, but we've seen in other sets, it's Feet of Resistance, and we see cards like this all the time. Well, not all the time, but we see effects like this frequently enough. This card was amazing.
Yes.
It seems like it would be better in this set than it is if you have like attached stats that come with it, like the Bondkin makes it first strike and the other Outlast cards, so you can add a counter and then protection and some keyword to it, right?
Yeah, you could just give your thing. You could just give your thing first strike, or give your thing death touch, or give your thing whatever you needed. Lifelink with the Abzan Battle Priest. So
It
really
was kind of an interesting like tension with this and morphs, right? Where like if you attack into their morph and they block, right?
Yep.
You're unlikely to use it right away because you don't even know what they're going to morph into and what color it is, right? But yeah, no, overall, this is just a really powerful card.
Yeah. The other
That is also one of the top white commons.
Yeah.
As weird as it looks.
Yeah. Mardu Horde Chief was another card I wanted to shout out. Just the best 3-drop in the warrior decks at common. Just you
2/3 stat line.
You get a 1/1. Like this would be good. This would be excellent by today's standards.
Yeah.
And my honorable mention.
Really good early.
Yeah, 2/3 is key to fight morphs. And my honorable mention went to Killshot just because it's the only actual white removal at common. So I threw that in there. Blue, a couple of them we mentioned already. So like we already mentioned some of these cards. Jeskai Wind Scout, definitely excellent. Force Away as a bounce spell. But again, like when your opponent's sinking 8 mana into their morph and you're bouncing it for 2, and put like looting, like you're ahead. Mystic of the Hidden Way, absolutely one of my favorite commons. Unblockable, 3/2 for flip it up for 3. So that card was great. And what did I give an honorable mention? I give an honorable mention to good old Treasure Cruise here. This card was a fun one.
Maybe we should mention Delve and how that played.
Yeah, there wasn't really a Delve deck. I mean, Sultai was supposed to be Delve, but it plays against itself, right?
Yeah, as you can see, the Tygom scheming on the left is your great Delve enabler.
Yeah, they've. I think with the cleaning up of mechanics, I believe this has 2 words of rules text now. Yes, Surveil 5. They cleaned it up, but as I might mention this again in trap cards, just cards that just fill your graveyard. It's not like let's say Lost Caverns of Ixalan, where you have things that care about how many of this you have in the graveyard. Did you put something in the graveyard this turn? Nothing like that. You have Delve, which can exile the cards, but there's nothing that really rewards you for the actual act of putting them in there other than just getting discounts off your Delve spells. So 2 or 3 Delve spells probably you're going to max out, honestly.
I'm just looking at the rates on some of these. Like we've Fate like just decade ago kind of stat lines and rates on cards here.
Yeah, it's no quick study. Yeah, this was pretty medium. There was better card draw, like looking at you, Treasure Cruise. But yeah, this wasn't a highly played card.
Yeah.
For that Mystic card, are you like morphing the turn after and just trying to jam like play aggressive with this card, or are you like morphing later on in the game as like a unblockable thing and just keeping it as a morph to block early if you're casting?
It depends on your deck, right? If you're playing just Sky, you're probably morphing it sooner, and if you're playing your value morph deck, you just flip it whenever you have the time.
Yeah,
because you're not really wanting to block with this ever. Like this is one of the morphs that you're treasuring. You want this to stay around. I'll also give a shout out to Monastery Flock as a really, really playable card. Morph for 1. Like this just beats every removal. Like they throw removal at your morph, and you for 1 mana turn to 0/5, and it's not going to die anymore to most of the things. And even though this has Defender, you could attack with this and morph it while it's attacking. I mean, it'll be a 0/5, but technically, even though it has Defender, it'll still be attacking. So for black, I'll call out a few cards. Again, cards we've already brought up some of them. Debilitating Injury, I wanted to mention. Obviously, just the best black removal. Mardu Skull Hunter I brought up before as well. I said, I guess, like Disowned Ancestor, maybe not as the best, but as an honorable mention. I guess Throttle is just sort of your bigger black removal. It was an instant, so that it got some bonus for that. But I don't have too much else to say about the black commons here.
Sultai Scavenger is also a really nice one.
Yeah, Sultai Scavenger was nice. It was a delve spell that the aggressive decks wanted to.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the delve spells that were good at common were like Treasure Cruise, Sultai Scavenger, Hooting Mandrills, I think.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up after. Yeah. So moving on to red, I was having trouble finding many commons I was happy with. I said Arrow Storm, 4 damage to anything, 5 if you attacked. It is a sorcery. Probably the best creature was the Mardu Horde Shrieker, that's common one. The guy that adds the mana. And then I said Barrage of Boulders was a card that could end games. Like this was quite playable. The board there were board stalls in this format, and you could fight through it with a Barrage of Boulders. I brought that up as an honorable mention.
It's Hazardous Blast.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
I mean, with like Bloodfire Expert, there's also vanilla 3 mana 4/2 in green. You're like teamer-ish decks could definitely have Barrage of Boulders as a win condition. And it's also a good sideboard card. Mardu has some cards that make a bunch of 1/1s.
Yep.
There's like Hordling Outburst here. Also, like their common morph card makes 3 1/1s.
Yeah, the Ponybacks. So for green, I did call out Hooting Mandrills as a nice
Trumpet Blast. Spell. Maybe worth quickly mentioning.
Yeah, there's Trumpet Blast here. Just
is playable in Mardu, where you have those 1/1 tokens. Never great, but with certainly something you could do.
Yeah, just don't cast it during your main phase.
No, or during the attack step.
Well,
we'll
definitely
it'll do way worse than nothing.
Definitely not there. Hooting Mandrills is probably one of the better green commons. 4/4 trample, often casting it for like 3 or 4, which is pretty nice. Savage Punch. We're used to Rabid Bite and the instant speed versions of that. This is not quite that, but the +2/+2, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, that made a big difference. It could let you get in for a really heavy damage turn, especially with something like an Alpine Grizzly here. You just kill their morph and attack them for 6, like pretty good, and then maybe play another 2-drop on turn 4 or something like that. And I want to talk about Willy Loxodon because this is just kind of like the biggest, baddest morph we get, at least at common. 6/7 for flip up for 6 just beats absolutely everything, except for Death Touch, I suppose. Yeah. I guess we could also talk about some of the mythic uncommons, which were mentioned already. Abzan Falconer. I sort of made a short list here of some of the best uncommons. Falconer. I also said Seeker of the Way. Like, this is just... this guy's clearly a monk, but they gave him the warrior type just to go in the warrior deck as well. But prowess and lifelink. Like, lifelink whenever you trigger prowess, gains lifelink. So this card was one of the scarier 2-drops. This could deal a lot of damage and put you really far ahead. What else? I said Murderous Cut. I mean, we can't talk about this set without talking about Murderous Cut. Probably the best uncommon. Or can we? Are we? Would you say that, Maxime?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, just kill anything, delve, cast it for as cheap as you can. Pretty great.
Yes. It's way more efficient than anything else you get.
Yeah, and just to mention for those who haven't played with Delve, you still have to pay whatever colored symbols are in the cost. It can only reduce the generic mana. So, I put Murderous Cut. What else? I put Arc Lightning as well. 3 damage divided as you choose among up to 3 targets for 3 sorcery, so you can kill 2 creatures. I mean, usually you could kill an X1 and a Morph, or it also deals damage to the players too. So, pretty good one there.
It's like
Mardu Heart Piercer. I mean, nowadays we just get Twin Shot Sniper, which does it when it comes in no matter what, and has an extra mode. But this was pretty good. If you attacked, it
Yeah.
deals 2 damage to anything.
It's Quinf in this set, right?
Yeah, pretty much. And last one I wanted to mention, there's a lot of good gold cards, which we'll get into, but as far as, cards close to my heart for the Morph deck, Ice Feather Aven was probably one of the best uncommon morphs. Just flip it up. I mean, also sometimes you just played as a 2/2 flying for 2 and started to beat face with them, or you could flip it up and bounce something. Like, this is really, really good. Though, it does say you have to return another target creature, so it cannot save itself from removal. But, yeah, pretty nice one.
You'll notice the 2-color gold cards in this set all touch 2 clans.
Yeah.
So they're actually a lot more flexible picks than they might look. So something like Ice Feather Aven covers 2 out of 5 clans, so it's not too committal. So yeah, don't be afraid to take them early when they're powerful.
Yeah, so the wedge sets are basically the 2-color, the enemy colors base. They're based in the enemy colors. So that brings us to the next topic, which is the multicolor cycles. So there's lots of multicolor cards, and they come in cycles, a lot of them. First one, which I talked about, Abzan Guide. There's a cycle of 6 drops in each of the clans. That morphs for 5 with three of the clan colors. So you have Abzan Guide here, which was 4/4 lifelink. Like, this was huge, especially if you had a Savage Punch to go along with it. You're probably gaining 12 that turn. Abomination of Gudul, which is a 3/4 flyer that loots when it connects, so also quite good. We have the Ponyback Brigade, or Ifrit Weapon Master as well. This one may be pulling up the rear from this cycle, but still, like, really good. This paired well with the Mystic of the Hidden Way, because when you turn it face up, give something else +3 power. So good with a flyer, good with could finish the game pretty nicely. The other ones were the Snowhorn Rider, the Teamer one. It's just a big 5/5 trample, and then the Ponyback Brigade, which I think I skipped over. Yeah, it makes 3/1/1. So these were all good. You would, if you were playing 2 colors, you would almost always throw these in with a couple of tap lands as one of your splashes. Just really, really solid cycle. You almost never wanted to play these for 6. You want to morph them up because you want that effect on turn 5 a lot of the time, and it's already attacking on turn 5 as well. We also have at Uncommon, they had a series of 5 drops for 3 colors. So Mardu Rough Rider is one of them. They were all pretty good. They had Armament Core for Abzan, like, distributes 2 counters. Yeah, so this was a good cycle too. You had the Bear's Companion it's a 2/2 that makes a 4/4. So these are good. The Sultai Soothsayer, which basically draws a card when it comes in and dumps a bunch of cards in your graveyard. And the Warden.
That's a good delve enabler.
Yeah, this is great. Yeah, this one was great, and Warden of the Eye was pretty good too.
I do vaguely recall milling myself out with a deck with too many Sultai Soothsayers.
Oh well, you die doing what
you
love,
do.
Right?
Exactly.
And then each wedge had both charms and ascendancies.
Yeah, the charms and the ascendancies. The ascendancies sort of varied. Like we could see her Teamer ascendancy. Like the charms were all good. Like almost all of them, all the modes were really good. Like, these were really, really strong cycle. Like Teamer ascendancy. Like, if you can make use of this, cool. You could draw a card off of it, but like a lot of the time I wasn't interested in this. And one which I think was a trap was Sultai Ascendancy, which it has a lot of text here, but I think it's been oracled to at the beginning of your upkeep Surveil 3 or Surveil 2. So it's just all it does is just put cards in your graveyard, which I don't think is what you want to do for Sultai. I think you want your cards to do something and put cards in the graveyard, like the Sultai Soothsayer that we saw. The other Ascendancies were good. Abzan, Mardu, and Jeskai were. I mean, Jeskai was a constructed combo card. I know that, but still pretty good and limited. Mardu was a good one. It made little goblins when you attacked. And the Abzan Ascendancy put a counter on each of your creatures, and all your creatures became flyers if they died. So those were good. Yeah, so Charms, Ascendancies. Were there any other rares? Or any other cycles? Yeah, there was the... Maxime mentioned there was 2 color cards at uncommon. Each enemy color pair got 2. So Chief of the Edge, Chief of the Scale for black-white. Green-black got Death Frenzy, which was a pretty good way to catch up or go late in the game. The green-black, as we'll see with their other gold card, was focused on having high toughness. So this Kintry Invocation, you make it an XX where X is your highest toughness.
Yeah. Death Frenzy being -2/-2 for 5 mana is kind of underwhelming these days, but with everyone playing a million 3-mana 2/2s, it was actually pretty good. Yeah. You could, especially like when you could shape like your hand to use that well. You could play cards like Archer's Parapet or maybe Salt Road Patrol, like X5s or whatever.
Yep, and those paired well with the Kintry Invocation as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so for Simic, I already mentioned Ice Feather Aven and Secret Plan, so we know what they're up to with the morph. Red-White, like I said, it was sort of an aggro deck, but you had to play a lot of kind of bad cards to make it work. But Ride Down was just a good card for your Mardu deck. Destroy a blocking creature, and you basically get to deal the damage as if it wasn't blocked. And High Spire Mantis was just a nice card, like just 4 mana 3/3 flying trample, like just, you know, nowadays this shows up at common and sometimes we play it, sometimes we don't, but this was good back then. Blue Red had, what did they have? They had Master of the Way, which was a removal spell that drew you a card. Again, it looks slow, but pretty great.
I mean, we played Fires of Invention recently, right? This is
Fires of Victory, yeah.
Fires of Victory, yeah.
Yeah. So Master of the Way, and then we also had Winter Flame, which was a nice little tempo card here. Burn a creature for 2 and tap something. So
3 mana shock, again, good when you're facing against a million morphs.
Yeah, I think that's it for the cycle. I mean, we had the clan leaders at Mythic. I mean, you know, Surak and NFNs and all those, but not going to talk too much about Mythics. Bill, did you have any other questions before we move on?
Not as far as cycles, thing like that. Probably I have a question for the fixing and drafting.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to get into, mana bases. So
I have a quick question first about Sultai and how you felt about that deck and how you drafted it. If you think we can't like turbo delve as much.
I think it was kind of just a green-black deck where you just played blue for some card draw and some gold cards. It was kind of just like the green-black toughness deck with blue cards rather than white cards. You know, just try and make the game go long, get value, and you know you do get some of the nice delve spells in blue. Blue did have some of the better ones, so it was kind of just a green-black deck I found a lot of the time because a lot of the Sultai gold cards were just not that great, like the Ascendancy and the Rakshasa Vizier, I think. Like there was a cycle of here's another cycle. There was a cycle of 3-color rares where they each sort of got that was the Rakshasa Vizier, and there was also the Keru Lich Lord, which wasn't great either. This guy. Like these gold cards were not really that appealing. So most of the time, like I wasn't drawn to Sultai. You know, if you open Sidisi or something, sure. But I mostly just play as a green-black deck, you know, play some Treasure Cruises, play some Sultai Soothsayers, but mostly based in green-black most of the time. Did you find that as well?
Yeah, I was actually kind of, when you mentioned that green has like 2 decks where you have like the 5-color morph deck and then a 5-color value deck, I'm thinking maybe Sultai was more of the 5-color value deck. Where it was more so splashing for like powerful rares and uncommons.
Yeah, yes, one thing before I move on to fixing, I just want to call out Mr. Sagu Mahler. So whenever your opponent attacks with a morph, with 5 mana, and you think to yourself, what's the worst possible thing that it could be? It's this. It's a trample hexproof that flips up for 5. So if you're ever wondering what's the worst possible thing they could have that's going to destroy me the most and ruin my day, well, here's the answer.
Were there any like secret architect color breaks, somewhat like we had rarely in, say, Streets of New Capenna or Strixhaven, where you'd be looking at like
like off
the
color?
shards?
Okay, yeah. So Maxime mentioned the white-blue prowess deck, very low to the ground, Just Guy Windscout, Just Guy Student. The other one I'll just call sort of dumb aggro was green-red. Like you play your Alpine Grizzlies and your Bloodfire Expert, this this 3/1 prowess along with like Awaken the Bear, like +3/+3 trample. Like you're just playing pumps and big stuff, trying to give trample. Like that was kind of a deck. It often just ended up being a teamer deck with some blue cards to add some tempo to the strategy. But that was fairly supported, I would say. You could play a green-red sort of just big stuff, like the usual cool decks that we see. Pretty.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of what Teamer does, right? It's
Yeah.
It splash with the uncommons, and everyone wants to splash for Treasure Cruise, of course.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, obviously. I do want to talk about the fixing because it's quite bad, aside from lands. So there's, yeah.
I did want to mention the 10 mana card Dead Drop quickly.
Yeah.
10 mana card with Delve.
10 mana. Opponent sacks 2 creatures. Where are you? Dead Drop. Yeah, there it is. Dead Drop.
Yeah. Don't be afraid to put this in your deck as like one of your Delve cards. If you can like in a long game, in a usual game, you'll get it down to 6 or 7, and the effect is powerful.
I think this was the only sort of. Oh, there was Necropolis Fiend, I think, which was 9 mana at rare. That was like a ridiculous cost. Yeah, this was 9 mana.
Yeah.
Empty the Pits also. I mean, just this is the most absurd mana cost. One of the most absurd mana costs I've ever seen. This was a little too silly to work, I think, in limited. XX quad black. a little silly. Yeah, but like I said, usually like you're not casting more than 3 Delve spells in a game, and usually not even 3. So on to fixing. Most of the fixing is going to come from lands. There's a few green cards that I'll bring up, but the lands you want the most are the uncommons. So the Mystic Monastery, the Frontier Bivouac, they're just tri-lands. These are the best. These are actually first pickable. Like if you look at a pack and you want to first pick a land, a tri-land, you might not be wrong.
Yeah.
Next were the gain lands, which I mentioned at the outset. These were just ubiquitous. These were everywhere. Players started at 22 life. Like I said, I often would end up with 6 or 7 after pack 1, which just would lead me down wherever I wanted to go. Then we have the fetch lands, which are very famous. These were big reprints. So, back then it was you can open a $20 bill at rare, so that was fun. But honestly, these are actually the worst of the lands for fixing. I mean, it gives you a card in your graveyard for Delve, but these are not the base colors. These like this Flooded Strand, white or blue, like that would be like, it would only go in a Jeskai deck or multiple colors, 4 or 5 color. But these were actually the worst of the bunch. At Uncommon, we have Banners, which I was really unhappy if these made my deck, honestly. So 3 mana, tap for one of the colors, and then pay 1 of each color and sack it and draw a card. Maybe when we get to League, or in the first couple weeks, people are going to be playing their Banners, but you just wanted your fixing from tap lands, honestly.
Is the ramp not applicable?
I don't think it's that important because most of the time on turn 3, you just want to play a morph.
Yeah, exactly. So going from 3 to 5, that big of a deal.
I will mention a couple fixing cards. Yeah.
I will say if your deck had, if you were splashing for cards like Soul Type Soothsayer or Bear's Companion, you were more likely to be okay with using a banner for that, for exactly that reason.
Yeah, so a few of the good fixing cards, Trail of Mystery I mentioned before. This one's great if you're doing the morph deck because it finds you the mana for the morphs you want to flip up. Rattle Mystic looks like a green mana dork, but this card can actually be played in any deck because you can morph it and then you can unmorph it, and it actually gives you mana when it flips up. So sometimes you play this on turn 2 as a 2-1 in your green deck, but this could actually be played by any deck. Like, you could play this in your Mardu deck if you wanted to. I mean, maybe Mardu wouldn't be the best color combo to take advantage of it, but like you could play it in Jeskai or something. You do not have to be playing green to put this in your deck, but obviously better in green. There's not too much other fixing. There's one unplayable on Seek the Horizon. It's just search for 3 basics and put it in your hand. Very, very bad. And that's kind of it for fixing. Like, is there something I'm missing? Like, it's bad.
I mean, there were a lot of lands. Yeah. The lands were good, and there was enough of them for you to be able to play 3 colors consistently. You wouldn't, as usual, like, you wouldn't want to have a straight 3 color deck that just, you don't even look at the costs. You want to have, you probably want to be base 2 colors, but also like what helped there is that you're playing a lot of morphs, so that's your early game. So it doesn't really matter if you get your lands later. But yeah, they did the job.
Yeah, sure. I will say that this set actually taught me how to build mana bases in Limited, because I drafted the second and third sets of the Theros block and M15, which were just basically play 2 colors, like once a blue and splash a card. And then we got to this set, and I wasn't listening to podcasts, I wasn't watching Twitch, like I was just basically playing the game. Like later on I got into, listening to LR and then maybe a couple other podcasts, but like this taught me how to build mana bases. I would sit down after a draft and I would mark down I would take a piece of paper, I would write down all the lands I had or what sources they were, and then I would count all my mana symbols of each color and I would line them up and I would figure out which basics I needed. Like I would do that every single draft that I was playing 3 colors, which was most of the drafts. So this actually taught me how to build mana bases. I just had to figure it out on my own, and I had my little method, and it took a while, but I literally wrote it down on the paper. I have 7 white mana symbols, I have 12 black, I have whatever, I have this land, I have that land. This makes 2, this makes 3. What basics do I need? Like that was how I built. That was how I learned mana bases. So thank you, Tarkir, for that.
So some people have mentioned, some formats being 18 land formats and or draw, choose the draw formats. Would that apply to cons? Either of those?
Yeah. 18. I mean, I played 19 a couple of times, I'm being honest, but yeah, this was kind of, unless you were doing like the Mardu black-white thing, this was like you were playing 18 lands a lot of the time because you had mana sinks. All the morphs were mana sinks, and you wanted to hit your land drops. You wanted to get to land 5, 6, 7 a lot of the time. So would you agree with that, Maxime?
Yes, definitely.
All right, we got I got some bad news.
You also never want to miss your 3rd land drop either.
Oh God,
right?
No.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that goes for every limited format, but this one.
This one specifically, right?
Yeah, and you don't want to miss your 5th land drop because that's when you actually get to turn your 2/2s into.
Oh yeah.
Does that mean that you do, say if you have a bunch of tap lands, you kind of want to also have the accompanying untapped lands so that you can go tap, untapped, and you're not punished for being
and then like often on turn 4 you would just play another morph and play another tap land, and then on turn 5 you have like you can start doing.
Yeah, I mean you'll usually not have that many tap lands that it's going to be a problem, but yes, you want.
So I did want to mention a few trap cards, or maybe cards I never got to work. We mentioned Taigam Scheming as just Surveil 5. I think what is it? Johnny like this one? Was that it?
Yeah, maybe you have to go to him. He has good arguments.
Maybe he put the pit card in.
There you go. Another card that looks like it's fixing Embodiment of Spring. Like this requires 2 colors to ramp. It's like you need your blue on turn 1 and you need your green on turn 2 in order for this to actually ramp. So I did not tend to play this one very much.
I played this in blue-green base decks.
Yeah, I just
to the other ones.
Yeah, it's just like your fixing is a 2-color card. Like, I wasn't a big fan. Quiet Contemplation looks like a build around. I didn't find that this was really good enough. I don't know, Maxime, did you ever play with this one?
No. Yeah. I never cast this. I did cast Goblin Slide.
Yeah, Goblin Slide is sort of the companion card, which I
is
never
that a real? Is that a real deck in this format?
because I've heard about Goblin Slide. I never got to do it. What would a Goblin Slide deck look like, Maxime? Since I don't think I know.
I don't know what a good Goblin Slide deck looks like,
Ah,
but
okay.
if you just put in cantrips and stuff, maybe you get there. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. I don't know if it's actually worth it, but it is the better of the build rounds, I'd say.
Yeah, I think I've also put as like a sort of a trap card that looks like it's telling you to do something. This Keru Bloodsucker. Whenever a creature you control with toughness 4 or greater dies, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. You can pay 3 to sack a creature to put a counter on it. Like, this being a 2/2 is actually like a big knock against it. And I mean, this sort of looks like it's good because Sultai Flayer is really good. Sultai Flayer being having a very similar ability. Whenever a creature you control with toughness 4 or greater dies, you gain 4 life. But this is just such an improvement on the body. This was like the 4-drop you wanted in your go late green deck, your Abzan deck, your green black, your Sultai, your basically every flavor of green. Maybe Teamer, maybe not Teamer, but most flavors of green wanted this. So the Cure Bloodsucker was actually kind of bad, and it looks like it might be good, but I don't think it was.
Tell me about the peak creature. Is it worth it to peek at your opponent's morphs?
Oh, Smoke Teller, or the I mean, it has already won the award for the Kofflerism that is the same when you Kofflerize it. It being now a Toke Smeller rather than a Smoke Teller, but I mean, it was a 2/2 for 2, which was good in this format. And once in a while, when you had mana, you could take a look. But it was good because it was a 2/2 for 2. Like, it was playable because it traded with morphs. Like, you play it on turn 2, and you can trade up with a morph. That ability came up once in a blue moon, but nothing.
Yeah, sometimes you'd look at your opponent's face down Sagumauler and just concede.
Oh, yeah, that'll do. I put Valley Dasher also as a trap. Like, it was just like there was just no deck. There was just no support for this deck, and it was too easy to fight against.
Is the 0/4 1 mana with bolster a real card?
Yes, we mentioned it at the outset. It's very good. It's
Oh,
actually
cool.
great. The disowned the disowned ancestor. It's also a warrior. Yeah, we mentioned this at the outset when we were talking about Outlast. This card is very.
Oh, yeah, so not bolster Outlast, yeah.
Also,
Yeah,
sorry.
you mentioned Valley Dasher.
Yeah,
I think also like Gurmak, Swiftwing, Monastery Swift Spear, those belong in that same category.
yeah. Monastery Swift Spear is going to be a trap card because it's so ubiquitous and constructed. So much so, I believe it was banned in Pauper this past week. I believe. Like, this card was just a staple. It's still played in Modern. It was a standard staple from the minute it came in. If you don't have constant 1-mana spells, interactive spells to back up with this, it's not doing a lot of damage. So don't get tricked. It's playable, but not good. Valley Dasher, quite bad. And what was the other one you mentioned?
Gurmak, Swiftwing, 2 mana, 1/2 flying, first strike, haste.
Yeah, get out.
It has a lot of text, but it's a 2 mana 1/2.
I mean, like, you could play it in Abzan and try and dump counters on it, but this is not what Abzan was trying to do. So
No, just don't.
obviously, if you get counters on it, it looks better, but I don't love it. And I'm gonna apologize to John P. Goku or Go Home by saying that one of his favorite cards of all time is sadly, I think, a limited trap, Villainous Wealth.
You're probably right, but I don't know.
Okay, so
I've definitely seen it cast and win.
Okay, so you pay, like, let's say 8 mana, right? That's like a reasonable amount that you could pay. So you exile the top 5. You exile the top 5, and then any things that is 5 or less you get to play. But, like, a lot of the times, it could be like a Glacial Stalker, which is a morph that you flip up for 5, but actually costs 6. Or those the 3-color morph cycle, the 3-color common morphs that are all 6 casting costs. Like, there's a lot of cards, hidden cards, that are higher mana cost that people are playing as morphs. So look, if you get to win with Villainous Wealth, great. Like, it could win, but I'm not into it. Sorry.
I can tell you that I'm probably slamming that every time as well.
Okay. I look forward to seeing you do good things with it. It's a cool card. It's cool. I can't say it's not. Anything else here? I think I went through basically all my points here. Do you have anything else, Bill or Maxime?
What would be like the stone cold bomb that you're hoping to open like day 2 of the Arena Open?
Oh, that's easy.
Wingmate Rock.
Yep.
Okay.
I think we got on the same wavelength here. This is definitely the
Like,
best
I've
card
heard
in
of
the
this
set.
card.
This is absurd. Yeah. If you attacked, it's 2/3/4s with flying, and then it even has extra text where you gain life. So of note, it's not. It doesn't make a copy of itself, which like maybe nowadays it would make a copy of itself. Well, maybe it wouldn't. I guess if it made a copy of itself, it would go infinite, but um, it makes a 3/4 flying, and whenever it attacks, you gain 1 life. So yeah, this is the best card in the set. I guess we could touch on some of the other bombs. High Sentinels was pretty good. This white rare 3/4 flyer could just dump counters on things.
Yeah.
Um,
Master of
anything?
Pearls, which is kind of an overrun.
Yeah, Master of Pearls pretty nuts as well. This was a win con for any deck that can morph it. I don't think there's anything in blue I would call like a insane bomb. I mean, Dig Through Time was good. Icy Blast could win a game. Carry Spell Snatcher was fun. Yeah, this is a fun morph. For 6 mana, you basically steal your opponent's spell, and then you can cast it for free at any time.
Yeah, really powerful card.
Yeah, that was my best memory of that was snatching a. My opponent played a morph. I turned this up and it was a Sagu Mauler, and they just decided they didn't want to play anymore.
Oh, how strange. Thousand Winds is.
Thousand Winds was pretty good. Like often, a lot of times you just played it as like a 5/6 flyer for 6, but for 7 mana you turn it face up, return all other tapped creatures to their owner's hand. That could be your own as well. Black. Any big old bombs to talk about? Grim Harrowsmix was good, but not a bomb. No, not really many bombs there. Ash Cloud Phoenix was very good. Crater's Claws it's an X spell that you could even get for cheaper. Sarkhan was insanely good. Like this card like might be this like up there for like in the top 3 or whatever of the set. And then there were a bunch of gold cards too that were pretty powerful. You know, like your Siege Rhinos and Mantis Riders and all that good stuff. So there was a good amount of bombs going around, but there was removal that beat them. There was board wipes. There was End Hostilities as a board wipe. There's Dune Blast as a board wipe. There's ways to make the game go long and to interact with bombs.
As we scrolled it, I wanted to mention Tormenting Voice. It's better in this set than most, I would say.
I think this was like the first time we got this, right? Like this. I think this was the first time they printed this effect.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, Khans of Tarkir is the first on. They're the bottom of the.
Yeah, but well, I mean, there wasn't like another card called this before. I think there was a card called Wild Guess where you had to discard a card at random and then you drew 2 cards. But I think this was the beginning of basically a card that's ubiquitous now, or at least an effect that we get in basically every set. Yeah, quite good. Good in the aggro decks even because late game if you refill your hand, and good in the games that want to go late as well. Nice card draw here. Yeah, so. Prowess decks
I did
too.
want to mention Cancel and Disdainful Stroke, the counter spells.
Uh-huh.
What are your thoughts on those?
I think Cancel is bad. I mean, Double Blue is because like you Double Blue is a lot to ask. I think Disdainful Stroke I found in a morph set. I think this is like maybe the worst it's ever been because it's been pretty good in other sets, but I did not like. Your opponent's playing morphs a lot of time. A lot of times your opponent's 5, 6, and 7 drops are morphs.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Like you said before, you don't want to play your morphs as 6 drops. You really want to flip them. So if your opponent's going turn 3 morph, turn 4 morph, you don't want to cancel or Disdainful Stroke those. Oh,
Yeah.
well, you can't Disdainful Stroke those.
Yeah,
And
this
then,
was not a counter spell format, really.
Yeah.
I'm surprised they didn't make one with Delve, a counter spell, but maybe that would have been too good for old formats. We already know how Delve.
They wouldn't.
We already know how Delve
Wouldn't make
messes
mistakes
up.
with Delve.
Never. They would never make a card that would be banned instantly in like every format and restricted in Vintage, would they?
Which did you want more, Cruiser or Dig?
Oh, Dig.
I mean, Dig Through Time is better. It's more selection, but I mean, you
Yeah, by the time you're casting those, you don't want lands
a lot
anymore.
of the time you are splashing your Treasure Cruise in like your Jeskai in your like your white red aggro tempo deck. You want this, and you're teamer that's like base green red, you're splashing. So this was desirable in most blue decks, honestly. Dig Through Time, you had to be more blue, I suppose, but it's just better.
There's some tension with Dutiful Return and Delve cards, where I think Dutiful Return was worse than you might expect it to be in a slower format.
Yeah, I like never cast
Delve
this
cards.
Dutiful Return. This has one of the funniest flavor text though. We have a word for enemies too mutilated for military service. Furniture.
Oh man, I don't think I've ever seen this said McKinnon art, which is
quite a disturbing
excellent.
image here of a person who's been repurposed into fruit trays here. Their upper and lower body on various sides of the room. Yeah, but like we're used to like Soul Salvage being fine. This just wasn't good. I because a lot of the time you're just like you're rebuying your morph card and it's like then your opponent knows or you like yeah, it just wasn't the right format for it. I don't think.
I do think it's the Delve that makes it bad.
Yeah,
You'd rather play Treasure Cruise. So I guess if you don't have those, it's fine to play Dutiful Return, I would
yeah,
say.
yeah. I suppose. Yeah, like I mentioned, like it's not like Lost Caverns of Ixalan where you're actively rewarded for putting things in your graveyard like over and over or having a certain amount of something in your graveyard. It's just you have delve spells. Like that's basically it. There's nothing that says do something for however many of this you have in your graveyard. It's just not part of the set. So dumping cards is really only good for delve. Like like you see scout. Like what do you think about this scout the borders here? If you remember that one, I'll pull it. I'll get it up here.
Yeah, I don't love that one because you're overpaying for this effect to underpay for the next effect, which I would rather let the game go on and then play my Delve card instead of enabling it that way. I
Yeah,
do like
it's
Bitter Revelation though.
yeah. Like this is dumping 5 cards in the graveyard, but at what cost? Like it's not really good. Yeah, Bitter Revelation was nice. It's funny that like one of the best delve enablers for constructed, like in standard, was a card not even from this set, the Seder Wayfinder, because it actually replaced itself. Like that,
Mhm.
it was a green card, like because it was played in standard with all the delve cards. Um, like that was actually good because it was a 1/1 that replaced itself and dumped cards in the graveyard. Yeah, Bitter Revelation was a nice one. You almost always had time for this. Um,
Yeah,
and it helped when you were at 22 on turn 2 that you could
yeah,
look at the top 4. This is an effect we see from time to time here. Uh,
This is just dark bargain, right? Like at
it's
sorcerer
a
speed.
sorcery
Or
dark bargain. Yes.
is that dead drop card like that's 10 mana? Is that pushing Delve too far, or is
Um,
that card good?
yeah, we mentioned this before. It's actually fine. Like you know, 10 is a lot, but cast it for 6 or 7. Like it's gonna have an effect. The boards were not really too wide. If the board was wide like a Mardu deck, you're probably just gonna die before you cast the dead drop. Um, but those weren't like the Mardu decks weren't really prevalent. Like maybe there was maybe one in a pod at most a lot of the time.
I mean maybe Dead Drop is a reason to play Scout the Borders.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
I
to like turbo it or something.
yeah,
Yeah, well, if you're looking for a way to deal with multiple creatures a little better, like there was the Death Frenzy that we mentioned at Uncommon. This sort of cleaned up a lot of the aggro starts the players could have. Probably a bit better than Dead Drop. All right. Any further notes, questions, inquiries, comments before we?
Oh, out of those two black white chiefs, the one that pumps power and the one that pumps toughness, which one did you want more?
Well, if you were doing the aggro version of Warriors, which was most of them, it's definitely Chief of the Edge. But Chief of the Scale was really strong too. They're both like super
I
strong.
think I would say Chief of the Skill is better generally
I know I
because
lost more games to Chief of the Edge than I did to Chief of the
yeah,
Scale. Especially the ones that
Chief
were
of the
pumping
Scale
high
being a
speeds.
2 mana 2/3 is just pretty huge. Like they can't block it for a long time,
Yeah, yeah.
and it blocks a lot of stuff.
Yeah, it having 3 toughness is very big. Very, very big. Yeah, it's a 2-drop that beats morphs, which is basically unheard of in this set. What else we got here? Just a great set. Like I said, it caught me right at the right time. It got me basically more or less addicted to drafting, just because everything was viable, right? Like you could do 2-color low to the ground. You could do 3-color. All of the 3-color groups, clans were good. You had the morph deck, you had the 5-color deck, you had all sorts of flavors of everything, and just really, really versatile and just repeatable. Like, it's just like every draft was different. No deck was the same a lot of the time, and a lot of fun cards.
Oh, maybe we can talk about Tusked Colossedon for a second. That's a vanilla 6-mana 6/5.
Yeah, don't play this. Go on.
Yeah. Usually don't play it, but really, like the stats are okay for the set. It's just that you'd rather have morphs all the time.
Yeah, like
So-
you're better off flipping a morph for this amount of mana. Like,
since we've lost vanilla creatures nowadays, are there vanilla creatures that are just stats wise worth it?
yeah, so we mentioned a couple. Alpine Grizzly. It being a 4/2 just triggers your ferocious spells. Like Savage Punch, it's good with Awaken the Bear. I mean, obviously on its base it trades with morphs, but paired with anything to back it up, it's pretty beefy. What was the other one that we said was good? Oh yeah, the Wetland Sandbar, completely reasonable.
Yeah.
Like, you just throw it in your deck,
Bomb.
just trade with a morph, you're good to go. Any other vanillas here? Or not too many
There's
vanillas.
4-mana 4/3 in red, which was pretty solid.
Summit Prowler, yeah. So a little hard to cast with the double red, but this is kind of king of the board if it ever came down on turn 4. The Yeti with flavor text for days. Yeah, this was nowadays we would nowadays we get Grabby Giant, right? But
Or Grabby Giant.
Summit Prowler was reprinted in Dragon's Effect here, which is the new timeline.
with slightly different art with a dragon in the background, I believe.
Yeah, that was the only change. It was just a dragon in the background.
Was it not? Oh no, it's not even new flavor text. Yeah, it's literally just a dragon. 2 dragons actually.
Oh,
Yeah.
2 dragons.
Yeah.
That's a good trivia point. There's just copy pasted dragons into the.
Oh no, it's a different flavor text. One is from Nitula the Hunt Caller, and then the other one's from Surak the Hunt Caller.
Oh.
Slightly different flavor text. So if you're into that stuff, nowadays most of the cards don't have flavor text because they put too much rules text. All right. Anything else we want to talk about before we call it a day here? And I know on Tuesday I'm going to be drafting for a good portion of the afternoon, getting in as many drafts as I can, as long as Arena doesn't crash like it often does when a set drops.
Look, I know 10 is a lot, but don't put Feed the Clan in your deck.
Oh
And then-
God! Okay. Well, I think most of us know not to play just pure life game.
Yeah,
I have sided this in.
a lot of them
to
have
decent
been
effect.
cast.
I've sided it in to decent effect, but more often than not, please don't.
Is it the Trumpet Blast decks?
So yeah, stuff like that.
There is a arena open with cons, I believe, coming up.
Yeah, so I guess we could talk a bit about sealed. Also, that could port over to talking about the league. I don't know what league mechanics will be, if they'll affect deck building like they do sometimes. But yeah, we have the arena open up coming up. So sealed, if you could frequently play like four plus colors, depending on how many tap lands. I believe tap lands were just at common, so you got multiple in a pack. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Maxime. I believe like you could get 2 or 3 in a pack.
Yeah, there wasn't a dedicated slot for them.
Yeah. So these were just slotted in a common, so you could get like you can get 11 of them in your sealed pool, right? And then you could just play all your 3-color cards. That was I didn't play that much sealed outside of pre-release, and pre-release we had our little clan pack, so it wasn't like super balanced normal sealed. But I imagine that this format just rewards you for playing more colors and doesn't really punish. And like the aggro decks were pretty fragile in draft, so like imagine the assertive decks are not going to be almost at all in sealed. So sealed's kind of like just sort of do whatever you like. Just first thing you look at, go look at your tap lands, because that'll tell you what you want to do. But yeah, I don't have too much else to say about sealed. But yeah, we do have the arena open coming up on Saturday.
Yeah, just a week. Next weekend.
Yeah, so
I'd be interested
kind of a quick
to,
drop, but I mean, like they're not. The next 2 weekends are like holiday weekends, so they're just getting it done now before the holidays.
I feel prepared now that we've gone over all these. Richard, Maxime, thank you.
I mean, you were just gonna drop 5 colors anyway, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've been looking forward to doing that the entire time.
Yeah.
It's possible that now is the time to learn how to play on full control completely, given that you really don't want to give away what morphs you have. Like, there are some morphs that morph up for 0 mana by revealing a card. And
Yes.
if you only have priority during those, that's kind of weird, right?
Okay, yeah. So there is a cycle at Uncommon of morphs here. I'll show Teamer Charger. They all have the same cost, which is to reveal a card of the corresponding color from your hand. And when they turn face up, you get it's a pretty small effect usually. I know the black one, the opponent loses 2 lives. That's not that small, but yeah. So I imagine that you will have priority for this even when you're tapped out, which is really obnoxious. Yeah, arena is bad with that. Like I've talked about it before. Like I just stopped playing for Pact of Negation in Cube because it would just give me priority even when I was tapped out. And then an opponent could play around it. Like I just stopped putting it in my decks in Cube because of that reason. It's miserable. So yeah, be careful with these. Nobody wants to play on full control, but like when you're playing for money in the open, be wary of that because these I assume is going to give you priority, basically at all times. So you know it's a cool effect, cool design space, but might not work well with the way Arena is currently programmed, unfortunately.
Yeah, the black one might be worth noting with flipping. It's a 1/1 death touch, so it will trade with anything.
Yeah, we'll trade with absolutely anything.
Maybe if your opponent has priority with no mana open and you have your like Woolly Loxodon, maybe don't attack it into it.
Yep. So Ruthless Ripper here. So this is sort of the great equalizer. This is basically, aside from First Strike, it basically trades with every single creature. Death Touch, 1/1 for 1, but you morph it and you reveal a black card and they lose 2 life. So really, really good card. This was probably the best of the bunch. Actually, I don't even think it was that close. The white one was pretty good too. You gained 2 life and it was a 2/1 flyer. But
Green one, just a 2 mana 3/1 was pretty good.
Yeah, 2 mana 3/1. Unless your opponent had a Sidisi's Pet waiting for it, it's probably gonna be fine. Any other cards you want to call out here before we get up here? I mean, just such a fun set. I mean, like I said, a lot of people that have started playing in the last 6 or 7 years are gonna look at some of these cards and be like, no way. We're gonna open a pack and see the commons and be like, are any of these playable? But you know, like I said,
Yeah.
adjust the card evaluations for the time, and upon playing the format, you'll familiarize yourself with a lot of how things work because it's a
They're
very
also
deep set.
there are more unplayables than usual. With like you have Shatter, Naturalize, and Erase, for example. You don't really have anything to hit with them.
Is
You have
Naturalize and Shatter and Erase are all in the set? Oh no!
yeah.
I know
Active
Shatter.
Treason doesn't really have any synergies.
Active Treason. There's no sack outlets that are like of reasonable mana cost. Yeah. Active Treason is randomly in there. Yeah,
You have
that's true.
everyone's favorite Lens of Clarity. So just Swift Kick is another card that you should probably deck.
This is what we got for instant speed fighting back then. +1/+0, and it fights target creature you don't control. I think I played it when I had Zurgo Helm Smasher in my deck because it had indestructible on my turn. I will call out Leaping Master as being. I think it's a record. I had 7 of these in a deck one time. I mean, if you're playing that like the red white like lower to the ground aggro deck, like this is the 2-drop you want, not the Valley Dasher.
Yeah, and I'll admit it might even be better than Wetland Sandbar and your blue-red decks.
Maybe, just maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah, Naturalize was in here too. Like, oh my god, yeah, there it is. Oh, another card I just call out for ending games is the Roar of Challenge. It could not only end the game, but it could also like wipe out several creatures. All creatures able to block target creature do so, and it gains indestructible. So you could use it as a what they used to call lure, which could win the game. But it could also just like if you had a big enough creature, you just wipe out 2 or 3 small creatures on your opponent's side and get in for a bunch of damage. So potential game ender, but sorcery. So watch out for it. Instant speed interaction can blow this out, but kind of a game, kind of like Barrage of Boulders, can sort of win the game out of nowhere, but is even a bit more flexible than that. It isn't uncommon though. Yeah. So we've been going at this for almost 80 minutes, so I think we'll wrap it up here. But yeah, like I know I'm going to be in the chat drafting. I'm going to be on drafting on Discord here, streaming it, and sitting in on other people's drafts this week because, like I said, this is just a milestone for me. I'm not here to say something's the greatest, but it's my favorite set to draft by quite a lot. And I'm hoping it's going to be as good as I remembered.
I'll say it then. It's the best set.
Okay. And I'm hoping everybody who hasn't played is going to enjoy it as much as I did. And it just came at the right time for me, right? Like I was a few months into the game, starting to get into draft, and then this just sort of blew my mind, just opened up a world of possibilities of what Magic can be, what drafting could be. I like it let me understand the color pie, right? Like enemy colors, ally colors, like which colors work together, and like the gold cards, and like it just taught me so much about not just the game, but like even like I said, like some of the base mechanics, colors, mana bases. Just such a good way to learn. Before we had all these stats websites and Twitch streams and podcasts, it's like I just sort of just sat down and drafted 3, 4, 5 times. I was starting to find which store has drafts on which day, and going all over the city to basically draft as much of this as I could. So I hope it brings the same enjoyment to everybody else. Any parting words, Bill or Maxime?
No, thank you.
Yeah, just remember the morph rule. That's pretty important if you don't know the cards yet. And yeah, just draft as much as you can, because I hope you'll enjoy it as much as we did.
Yeah, for sure. So thanks for watching, and we'll see everybody in the queues.